John Cox, welcome to KQED Newsroom. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
At this point, as we sit here, you are not yet a household name in California. You are a CPA, you're an attorney, you're a venture capitalist, a businessman. What are you offering that California needs?
Political reform. We've got a system that rewards the funders of campaigns, that basically allows the funders of campaigns to dictate what happens in Sacramento. The result is that we've got a state that has one of the worst business climates in the country, has the highest income and sales tax rates, now one of the biggest gas tax rates. It's almost becoming unaffordable for middle-class people.
When you say political reform, what does that mean?
That means we need to change a system that really allows the corruptive influence of special interest money to really dictate what happens in Sacramento. And the voters know it. I mean, we've done the polling, and 90% of the people believe that special interest money is the driving force behind just about everything that happens in Sacramento.
Forgive me, though, because that's something that many elected officials talk about, cleaning up the system.
Well,
Bernie Sanders talked about. So what makes you think John Cox, with a Democrat-controlled legislature, two-thirds majorities in both houses, that you, as governor, as a Republican, could do the job? Because
we're going to get a new legislature that's going to be immune to the funding of these special interests. It's similar to what's being done in New Hampshire right now. New Hampshire is a very small state, obviously, but it has these tiny little micro districts, and real people run for office, and they do it by getting to know their neighbors and talking to them on their doorstep. So I went to the top lawyers and the top political scientists in California, and we've devised a plan, a system that's very much like the New Hampshire system, but is adapted to a state, obviously, so much larger like California, and it works.
So you're talking about this neighborhood legislature idea that you want to put on the ballot. It would carve up existing districts into much, much smaller districts? Is that what it would do?
Yeah, it makes every single district only 5,000 or 10,000 people, so that real people can run, and they don't need any money to do it, so they won't be professional fundraisers like the people in Sacramento.
That sounds good, but on the other hand, you're talking about a legislature that would be, what, almost 100 times as big?
But we devised...
Is that right?
We do, but we devised a special system called a working committee that allows still only 120 people in Sacramento to do all the legislative work, but they're responsive to the people out in the neighborhoods who are elected in the neighborhoods.
You've run for office 3 times in Illinois. You ran for the Senate. I think you ran for Congress. You ran for the Cook County deed recorder. You lost all those races. And you've also pushed the ballot measure you described, and also another one to require legislators to put logos on their shirts and jackets saying who their campaign donors are. What would you say to someone who hears all that and thinks, well, he's just kind of a rich guy, kind of a political dilettante?
No, I'm not a dilettante at all. I'm a political disruptor. I guess that's the term that's used now, especially in the Bay Area here. But I spent my life, I grew up in the south side of Chicago with a mom who taught in the Chicago public schools, and I saw firsthand the corruption. So if there's one theme in my life, Scott, is that I abhor political corruption. I've always worked against the corrupt interests, which may in fact be what I lost those races because the corrupt interests are very powerful. They're very powerful. So I'm not giving up. And I think this neighborhood legislature, which I've been working on for 7 years, is really the tool that we're going to use to clean up Sacramento.
So we haven't had a Republican win statewide, I think, since 2006. And Donald Trump, very unpopular in California. So I have to ask, you're a Republican, did you vote for Donald Trump?
Well, I'm singularly focused on this legislative idea. I will say that California has more than its share of Republican governors,
Well, let me just stop you, because the question is, did you vote for Trump? And are you saying that you don't want to say?
I'm not really going to get into the wars over Donald Trump. And frankly, it's kind of dumb for California to be at war with Washington. I'm glad he's president. I think Hillary Clinton, had a lot of faults. I think Donald Trump won because he talked about cleaning the swamp.
He's got all these billionaires in his cabinet.
I understand, and that's the problem. See, Scott, I'm going to run for governor. I'm not going to ask people to trust me. I'm going to ask people to believe in a plan that I have, a structure with this neighborhood legislature that's going to allow us to finally elect people that represent us and not the special interests. And I think the people of California will warm to that idea, and that's why I started early to get this going.
Just real quick, if I can get some of your positions, kind of a yes or no sort of on some things. Do you support a woman's right to abortion?
Well, I am going to focus not on the social issues. If anybody wants to look me up, they can see where I've stood.
Well, why don't you just say, though?
Well, because I want this to be all about the neighborhood legislature and getting an end to the corruption. And so,
but if that's an issue that's important to someone, because the governor appoints a lot of judges,
but I won't have anything to do with it because it's decided by the Supreme Court. These issues, the social issues, guns. I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm pro-life. I'll talk about those. But I want the focus of this to be on getting California to be in a sustainable position for the future, financially, as well as cost-wise, as well as job-wise, to produce the jobs that we need to allow people to have a future in this state.
Do you support Donald Trump's idea of building a wall at the Mexican border?
I think the immigration issue is one that we have to deal with. Again, I'd like to see it built with a consensus, with a legislature that's representing the people, and we build a consensus.
But you think it's a good idea generally?
No, I think we ought to enforce the law. I think we ought to deport people who have broken the law. I think we need to have a robust defense of the law, and I think a wall is done well for San Diego and certain populous areas where it's needed.
All right, John Cox, Republican running for governor of California. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.